Hello and welcome to the Ball Plays. We're up to Book 10 in our Lone Wolf Wednesday series, The Dungeons of Torga. Let's go. The story so far. You are the warrior Lone Wolf, last of the Kai Masters of Summerland. The Revenge of Gnag. Sole survivor of the massacre that destroyed your kinsmen during a bitter war with your age-old enemies, the Dark Lords of Helgadad. Many centuries have passed since Sun Eagle, first of your kind, established the Order of the Kai. Aided by the magicians of Desi, he completed a perilous quest to find the seven crystals of power, known as the Lawstones of Nixator. Hiccup, and upon their discovery, he unlocked a wisdom and strength that lay within the Lawstones and himself. He recorded the nature of his discoveries and experiences in a great tome called the Book of the Magna Kai. You discovered this lost Kai treasure, and have given a solemn pledge to restore the Kai to their former glory, ensuring the security of your land for years to come. However, your diligent study of the ancient book enabled you to only master 3 of the 10 disciplines. To fulfill your pledge, you must complete a quest undertaken by Sun Eagle 1,000 years ago. By doing so successfully, you too will acquire the power and wisdom of the Magna Kai, which was held within the Lawstone's crystal form. Already your quest has taken you far from your northern homeland. Following in the footsteps of the first Kai Grand Master, you journeyed to Desi and sought the help of the Elder Magi, the magicians who aided Sun Eagle in his quest long ago. There you learned that for centuries the Elder Magi have awaited the coming of you. An ancient Desi legend tells of the birth and rise to greatness of 2 Kura Tuskai, sons of the sun. One was named Ikar, which means eagle, and the other Skarn, meaning wolf. A prophecy foretold that the Kura Tuskai would each come from the north to seek the counsel of the Elder Magi, in order that they might fulfill a great quest. Though separated by several centuries, they would share one spirit, purpose, and destiny to triumph over the champions of darkness in an age of great peril. The Elder Magi knew that you were Skarn, the wolf of Desi legend, and in keeping to their ancient vows, promised to help you complete your Magna Kai quest. In Elzian, the capital of Desi, you were tutored in the histories of Magdamun and received lessons in lore that you would have normally learnt from your Kai masters, if only they, like you, had survived the murderous Dark Lord attack on the Kai Monastery 12 years ago. You were eager to learn all about that from your tutor, Lord Ramoa, and all that he could teach you in preparation for the next stage in your quest, but grim news from the Darklands cut short your tuition. In the Dark Lord city of Helgadad, the civil war had erupted, following your defeat of Hakon, Archlord of the Black City. After 5 years, the battle for the throne of Helgadad had been won by the Dark Lord Gnag. The other Dark Lords, now united behind this new leader, were ordered to amass huge armies in preparation for the conquest of Magnamun. Swiftly, their Giak legions grew in number, enabling Gnag to launch a sweeping invasion that was to catch the Freelands unprepared. Several countries, after brief but futile resistance, were completely overrun by these armies. Others surrendered without fighting in the face of their determined might, and there were those who even chose to betray their former friends and allies by joining the Dark Lord cause, in a misguided hope that they would get to share in the spoils of victory following the triumph of Dark Lord Gnag. One such land was Vasagonia, a powerful desert realm to the north of Desi. Her armies mobilized and invaded the neighboring states of Cassion and Cloasia, and then marched west through the Republic of Anari in order to join with Gnag's horde as it steamrolled across central Magnamun. The Elder Magi urge you to begin your quest for the 4th Lawstone at once. The enemy armies were converging on the Anarian capital of Tehu, and beneath that city the Lawstone was hidden. Aided by Mage Master Bane, an old friend and fellow countryman, you set off in haste for Tehu and arrived barely hours ahead of the enemy. Successfully, you made your descent and discovered the object of your quest, but upon returning to the surface, you found Tehu transformed into a blazing inferno. Dark Lord Gnag and Zak Khan Kimar, the ruler of Vasagonia, had learnt of your presence and were determined to destroy you at all costs. For days, their engines of war hurled fire and rocks across the walls of Tehu with devastating effect. Then a massive assault led by the Zakan himself breached the west gate and gained entry to the burning city. Armed with a weapon of awesome power, the evil Zakan sought you out and challenged you to a fight to the death. The struggle was desperate, but you emerged victorious and led the Anarians into a counterattack that cleared the city of their invading foe. The allies of Anari arrived to raise the siege, and in the ensuing battle, the demoralized armies of Gnag and Kimar were smashed and routed. Your defeat of Zakan Kimar turned the tide of the war decisively against the Dark Lord's armies and has paved the way for the liberation of the lands they had taken by force. But the sweet taste of victory turned sour when you discovered that Dark Lord Gnag had captured the last 3 remaining Lawstones of Nixator. Lord Ramoa and the other members of the High Council of Mages joined you in Teho to help formulate a plan of action. They had already received word from Prince Gregor, the ruler of Eru, that one of his patrols had found a man near the borders of the Hell Swamp. He was a Telestrian soldier who had escaped the dread city of Torgar, where he had been imprisoned after being captured in battle. He had suffered terribly at the hands of the Dracarim, evil humans in service of the Dark Lords. When found, he was so badly injured he was almost unrecognizable. Before he died, he spoke of 3 radiant gems filled with golden light that had been brought to Torgar from the Dark Lord city of Mosgor. We are now sure that what he saw was the arrival of the stolen Lawstones, says Ramoa. Speaking on behalf of the High Council, they radiate a goodness so strong that Gnag could not hold them in the Darklands and had to move them to Torgar. There his sorcerers, the Nadzir Anem, are searching for the means to destroy them. The black art of the Nadzir Anim has grown powerful of late, and we fear they may achieve the task set them by Gnag. Therefore, we must act quickly and with the utmost secrecy if the Lawstones and the Magna Chi quest is to be saved. The Elder Magi had already made preparations for your secret journey to Eru, where upon your arrival, Prince Gregor will help you reach the grim city of Torgar. The thought of having to enter the terrible Dracarim stronghold fills you with dread, but you pledge to destroy the Dark Lords and restore the Kai strengthens your resolve. But your pledge to destroy the Dark Lords and restore the Kai strengthens your resolve and helps to suppress your fear. On the eve of your journey to Eru, the Elder Mages convene a special meeting of the High Council to pray for your success. For several hours they kneel in prayer until they finally arise and intone the blessing that has sustained you in the past. May the god Ishir and Kai protect you. You are on your journey into darkness, Core Scarred. Begin. I mean, it's a singing mic. It's a fairly decent mic. It's not like a recording studio level mic, but it's a pop singing slash PA slash standard mic. Oh yes, we get a new mastery. Mace? Mace sounds fine. I mean, most of that's going to be because of where the microphone stand is. It's directly on top of, well, directly on top. It is on the bench, it is on the desk, and then the desk is, it is directly atop where the PC is. Yeah. Okay. What do we want to take? Does the flask of water do anything? What about the blanket? Let's get rid of that. And that. Now, we have had want of the special item. The Psychic Ring I don't think we particularly want. The Iron Key we don't want. Let's assume they're going to give us a new quiver. But it looks like, based on last book, that it is worth carrying around the Dagger of Vashna. I don't think it's worth carrying around the Crystal Star. Yeah, that looks good. Money. Deposit 1 gold. I understand. Okay, what will we take? We will take a new and full quiver. What's this alpha potion? Okay, so it's performance-enhancing drugs. A healing potion. Our rope got eaten last adventure, so we'll grab a new rope. And then I'm not really allowed anything else anyway. So we say that's fine. Well, I should probably trade the sword for a dagger. Okay. It is dawn on Midsummer's Day, when you ride out of Teho. Since your victory over Zakan Kimar, your appearance in a public place has been enough to provoke spontaneous cheering from the Tahuis, who regard you as their savior. But on this warm, sunny morning, you leave the city unnoticed, for on this occasion you appear to be just another messenger. The army uniform you wear and the white horse you ride are part of an elaborate deception conceived by the Elder Mages, in order to make the Dark Lord Gnag believe you are returning to Summerland. You have given your Kai Cloak and Tunic to your friend Bane. Disguised as you, he will leave for Summerland aboard his flying ship, the Skyrider, this afternoon. A formal ceremony is planned to mark his departure, and another awaits his arrival at the King's Citadel in Holmgard. Gnag has vowed to kill you. It is a vow that has become an obsession that torments him like a poisoned wound. It's hoped that Bane's much-publicized flight home will lure Gnag's vengeful eyes to the north and raise your chances of success at Torgar. Your ride ends in Firidna, where you catch a barge downriver to the port of Talon. Here you hear news of a rebellion in Barrakesh, not Marrakesh, Barrakesh, the Vassagonian capital, and reports of the sudden withdrawal of all Vassagonian troops from the lands she had invaded early in the year. This bodes well for the continuing struggle against the Dark Lords, for Vassagonia was their only major ally. You spend one night in Talon before buying passage aboard a merchantman on its way to the Tentaris. Along the Tentaris. And 5 days later, you disembark at Garthid. Bless me. The capital of Telestria. Telestria was overrun in the early days of the war, but the neighboring country of Palmrian came quickly to her aid. The armies of Telestria and Palmyra united and fought the invading horde, led by warlord Zegron of Ogia, on the battle plains to the north of Garthan. For 3 days and nights, a bitter struggle raged, and the allies were sorely pressed to withstand the overwhelming numbers of the enemies ranged against them. But on the morning of the 4th day, the unexpected arrival of the dwarven army of Boar was used to seal Zegron's doom. His mighty force crumbled, and the survivors, fleeing northwards in chaos, were pursued relentlessly. The latest news tells of the Allies' capture in Zanar, a major Ogian stronghold, and their continued advance westwards along the Black Shroud Trail. The royal court of Queen Yvain would be honoured to assist you, but secrecy is paramount to the success of your quest, and so you shun the royal palace and take lodgings instead at the humble dockside tavern. There you arrange transport to Iru, aboard a brigantine bound for Humboldt, the Urian capital, and the next day you leave at noontide. Upon your arrival, you make your way to the city's ancient quarter, where the elder Maggie have arranged a clandestine meeting with Prince Gregor in the cellar of a disused warehouse. The young prince waits patiently for your coming. Like you, he is dressed in the clothes of a messenger in order that he can walk the streets of his city incognito. He welcomes you with a salute, bringing his hand diagonally across his chest, and assures you that your true identity is known only to him. For over an hour, you discuss your plans and listen to the princes recount some of the events that have disturbed the peace of Eru. 2 years ago, Dracarim renegades from the Hammerlands attacked and overran his northern city of Lumi. I like Rainy Mood for this. I like Rainy Mood for sitting and reading and imagining that I'm in front of a crackling fire. The inhabitants were slaughtered, and the holy temple of Luomi, around which the city was founded, was looted and burnt to the ground. Only recently did he learn from the elder mages that the ancient temple held the law stone of Lumi, one of 3 law stones now locked in Torgar. At the time of the attack, the prince's army was too small to repel the invaders, and he was forced to abandon the city as well as the border town of Setza. But in the past month, he has joined forces with King Sarnak of Lencia, and together they have recaptured Lumi and driven Baron Shinzar and his Hammerland rebels all the way back to Setza, within 30 miles of the border. You wouldn't mind a crackling fire right now? You just woke up and it's chilly. The prince invites you to accompany him to Lumi, where he is to resume command of his army and lead them to battle. He provides you with a fine Uran steed and a new disguise to enable you to travel through Uri without drawing undue attention to yourself. Dressed as a pathfinder, one of the elite unit of woodsmen who operates in the harsh territories bordering the Hell Swamp, you ride north with the prince's entourage and arrive at the city 5 days later. Every house, stable, tavern, and municipal building is filled to overflowing with knights and men-at-arms. But despite their cramped billets and meager rations, the soldiers of Eru and Lencia are in good spirits. For tomorrow they march against a foe that they have already beaten in battle. Most are eager to finish the job once and for all. You are given lodgings within the main citadel, and later that evening, after the princes attended a war conference with King Sarnak, you meet in private to discuss the next stage of your quest. There are 2 ways to reach Torgar, the prince says as you study the map given to you by the Senate of Teho. You can cross the River Brol and make your way northwards through the Mog Ador Forest, or you can go to Prissy and seek out Seb Jarel, the leader of a brave band of partisans who have ambushed and resisted the Dracarim ever since they invaded. If there is a path to Torgar between the Hell Swamp and the Isle of Ghosts, he will know it. You ponder the choices and wonder why the prince has not suggested the simplest route, north across the Isle of Ghosts. When you mention this, he shakes his head ominously. The isle is cursed, he says, pointing at the map with an accusing finger. Few have ever come out of that dreadful place alive, and the poor wretches who have survived, only one has kept a grip on his sanity. His name is Seb Jarel. Wasn't that the person you told me to... Yes. To find? Next day, you rise with the dawn and prepare to set off on your journey to Torgar. There are 2 routes open to you. You can ride to Prissy and seek out Seb Jarel, the partisan leader, and the only man who can guide you through this treacherous wilderness, or you can accompany Prince Greyor to battle at Setza. If his army beats the Dracarim and forces them to retreat, the way across the River Brol will be open, and you will be able to approach Torgar under the cover of the Mogador Forest. Consult the map before you decide which way to take. I choose to follow the prince. I don't want to go through the Isle of Ghosts, or make use of the rebels. Since the first rays of dawn light brighten the eastern sky, the streets of Lumi echoed to the shouts of sergeants and the crunch of footed feet. booted feet, not footed feet. The regiments of Lencia and Eru are taking their places in the column of... But the map? I don't care about the map. I don't want to go with the rebels, Vama. The rebels sound like they're useless to me. Who is going to help me travel faster? A prince's army or some rebels? Oh, but you want to see the map? Okay. So here's the map. We are here and we want to get up here. Our options are the Isle of Ghosts and then the forest, or wherever it said the rebels were. And that's where the baddies live, up in Mosgor. Here is the Hell Swamp. So presumably the other way is presumably the other way is this way, through the swamp and then across. Where were we? Footed feet, yes, here. Booted feet. The regiments of Lencia and Eru are taking their places in the column of march, and by mid-morning this column, 6,500 strong, is ready to leave for battle. Company by company through the city's east gate they depart, trampling the dusty road that leads to Setza. When the time comes for you to join them, you take your place with Prince Greygor's escort and fall in line behind the armoured knights of the palace guard. The army is well protected by Lencian horse scouts before, behind, and on both sides to make sure it is not ambushed whilst crossing the 20 miles of open grassland to Setza. During the afternoon, a troop of scouts are sent ahead to spy on the enemy. They return to report that Baron Shinzar has fortified the town and received reinforcements from Blackshroud since his defeat at Lumi. The news does not cheer Prince Greygor, for he knows the ground around Setza does not favour the attacker. It is dusk when the army arrives on the outskirts of the town. In the gloom, you can see the enemy campfires flickering between the ruins of cottages that were destroyed when the Dracarim first invaded the land. Occasionally, their gruff voices can be heard on the chill evening wind as they shout orders and call the names of slaves and attendants. After a whole tiring day's marching and with night drawing close, the order goes round that there will be no battle offensive this evening. Quickly the regiments disperse and many fires are lit. Tents are erected for the night and the baggage carts are unloaded to provide the men with stores that should make their night in the open less uncomfortable. The prince chooses to position his headquarters on a hill to the north that overlooks the town, and King Sarnik of Lencia chooses a similar position on a hill beyond the road, half a mile to the south. Shortly after the tents are constructed, a message arrives from King Sarnak's headquarters inviting the prince to join him and draw up plans for tomorrow's battle. The prince accepts the invitation and says you may accompany him. Sure. In the company of a dozen bodyguards and court heralds, you follow the prince as he makes his way on foot to King Sarnak's camp. It is his usual practice to inspect his soldiers on the eve of battle, to see for himself that all is well and raise their spirits with a few words of praise and encouragement. He is heartened to discover their morale is already high and that they are confident that he will lead them to victory. At length you arrive at the Lencian headquarters. A huge yellow flag, bearing the emblem of a white swan and blue dragon, flutters in the breeze above the royal tent, where a unit of silver-clad knights stands stiffly at attention. A trumpet announces your arrival, and the knights escort you inside to meet the king. After formal greetings are exchanged, the grey-haired king begins to discuss the impending battle. The prince has brought with him a detailed map of the town, and as the two leaders formulate their plans, it is used to mark the places where their regiments will assemble and attack. His hand appears upside down. Yeah, maybe it's the right way round. To me, that feels the wrong way round. If only we knew the number of reinforcements Baron Shinzar had received, says the king uneasily. Then we could be sure our plans would succeed. The prince nods in agreement. We must send out a scout to reconnoitre their defences. or hundreds of our soldiers could lose their lives needlessly in this assault. The king looks in your direction, then returns his eyes to the prince. I have no scouts trained for such a delicate operation. But I see you have a pathfinder. Send him. His skills would be well suited to this task. The prince hesitates. He cannot reasonably refuse the king's suggestion. Yet to send you into the enemy camp would endanger your life and quest. Volunteer to scout the enemy's positions. Let it not be said that we are brave. Excellent, says King Sarnak. I wish I had more men like you in my own army. He bids you step forward and shows you the extent of the known enemy position, using Prince Gregor's map. Once you've been briefed, he sends for some black clothing to wear instead of your Pathfinder uniform, some burnt cork with which to blacken your face and hands. You're escorted to the edge of the encampment, close to the dusty road on which the army marched for Lumoy. The guards tell you that the password is broadsword, which we will note down. When you return, you must use this word, or the pickets, the sentries who guard the perimeter, may mistake you for an enemy. The ground to the west of Setzer is flat and featureless, and offers little cover to conceal your approach. Slowly, you'll work your way through the knee-high. I'm beginning to question whether it might have been wiser to pick as my new skill, instead of sky screen, advanced invisibility, but okay. Slowly you'll work your way through the knee-high grasses to within 20 yards of a stone bridge, where the road crosses a foul-smelling ditch and enters the town. Your every movement is stiff with caution. The bridge is barricaded. You can see the spiky black helmets of the enemy defenders glinting in the moonlight. Snake-like, you wriggle forwards, slide down into a ditch, and take shelter beneath the stone bridge. With one cheek pressed against the wet stone, you strain your ears to hear what the enemy is saying. You recognize their harsh, ugly language, Giak, but it is being spoken by human voices. The only humans to speak it so fluently are the Death Knights, the elite of the Dracarim. Suddenly there is a loud splash that sends your pulse racing. A spear has fallen close to where you're hiding, and the shaft lands upright in the muddy water. A growling curse is followed by the sound of heavy boots, descending the bank as an angry Death Knight comes to retrieve the weapon that he has dropped. If you have completed the Law Circle of Solaris, what would I have needed for that? Out of interest? Invisibility, Hunt Mastery, and Pathmanship. Then you may auto-succeed on hiding. Otherwise, roll the random number table. We do not roll higher than 7. With a splash, the Death Knight warrior appears, his massive frame filling the archway. He curses his clumsiness, and snatches up his spear. But his curse turns into a shout of alarm when he sees you. Do we attack this elite soldier? Let's go with yes. If I die, I get to go again and pick advanced invisibility. You leap from the shadow with a mighty blow at the Death Knight's head, but in spite of the speed of your attack and the encumbrance of his heavier armor, he manages to turn your blow aside with the tip of his spear. Let us re-equip our summer sword, please. Sword and shield, yes. Go. 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 Defeated. As the Death Knight screams his last oath and falls face first into the stinking ditch water, you hear shouting and the sound of men in armor, descending the bank from both sides of the bridge. Drawn by the sounds of your struggle, the elite warriors are closing in for the kill. Speed is your only ally now. With an energy born of desperation, you claw your way up the slippery bank and sprint towards the allies' encampment. The enemy sees you escaping and directs a hail of arrows at your fleeing figure. 2 shafts bury themselves in your back. Lose 12 health. And you are pitched to the ground? If you are still alive, turn the page. Despite the agony of your wounds, you rise to your feet and stagger forwards. The arrows tear open your wounds with every jolting step as you take, and the pain is too terrible to bear. With consciousness fading, you drop to your knees. Your only hope is if you can wrench the arrows free. Pick a number from the random number table. If you have curing, deduct 3 from the number. The remaining number equals the number of additional endurance points you lose. So I lose 1. You are lucky that the arrows pierced your back, were not barbed or tipped with poison. You grit your teeth, mustering your remaining strength, and stagger to your feet. 50 yards from the Allies' picket line, you see 2 Lencian men-at-arms moving forwards with their swords drawn. Give the password, which was broadsword. If it's the Pathfinder, quick, he's wounded. The 2 soldiers run forwards. They raise their shields to protect your back from the arrows and help you to reach the safety of the camp. Where your wounds are cleaned and dressed, you return to King Sarnak's quarters. He and the prince are anxious to hear your report. Despite your being discovered by the enemy, you've gathered useful information about the troops defending the bridge. The king praises your bravery, and Prince Gregor orders the heralds to escort you back to his tent. After the ordeal of the scouting mission, you are grateful for the chance to get a good night's sleep. Oh, wow. The Battle of Setzer. Troop positions at dawn. Mounted men-at-arms, 200. Mounted men-at-arms, horse knights, horse scouts, bows, Lencian spearmen, halberds, foot knights, halberds, bows, halberds, foot knights, pikes, men-at-arms, peasant levy reserves, pikes, Eruan longbows, palace guards, and against the end we've got Dracarim pikes, hammerhanders, hammerlanders, archers, armored Dracarim, brigand, something that I can't read, brigands, archers, Zagan Ozog, mounted death knights, organs, not gorgons, orgons, and akataz. At the break of dawn, the soldiers of Lencia and Eru rouse themselves and adopt their positions for the fight. You gather your equipment and join the prince at the top of the hill on which he has established his command posts. Organs, my lord! He's observing the enemy line through a telescope and dictating orders to his herald, who commits his words to parchment and dispatches them to his regiments in the field. We outnumber the enemy 2 to 1, but they are well positioned to receive our attack, comments the prince, handing you his telescope so that you can scan their lines. The town of Setzer is little more than a handful of ruined cottages clustered atop a flat-topped hill. To the north lies a wood and a small hill on which a ruined temple stands. To the south lies an orchard surrounded by a low wall. Further on, open grassland is bisected by a ditch that runs the whole length of the battlefield. The road from Lume crosses the ditch at the stone bridge, which is barricaded and heavily defended. The enemy have also been busy to the north. A mass of pointed stakes form a barrier between the 2 hills to impede any attack by cavalry to break through the centre. All along this defensive line are row upon row of Dracarim soldiers. An unnatural calm descends upon the field, as though time momentarily stands still. Suddenly the quiet is shattered by a fanfare of trumpets from King Sarnak's camp, the signal to advance. Napoleonic troop dispositions and troop movement diagrams are the best. The foot knights of Lencia are the first to go forwards, their densely packed columns marching in perfect order towards the bridge at the center of the enemy line. As they come within range, there is a sound like rushing water, and a cloud of black arrows pours down on their armored ranks. Huge gaps appear in the line, and the columns seem to sway under the impact before continuing their assault. They are flanked to the south by crossbowmen who are firing their weapons as they advance. Unlike the knights, they wear little armor, and over half their number are felled by arrows when they halt to reload their cumbersome bows. The survivors retreat, taking cover among the massed ranks of Lencian spearmen who are advancing towards the orchard. Prince Gregor signals his pikemen and men-at-arms to support the knights, who are engaged in a bitter hand-to-hand fight at the stone bridge. They are within 100 yards of the bridge when a crackling ray of electric fire sweeps down from the ruins of the temple. It rips through their packed ranks with a devastating effect, blasting the pikemen high into the air. If you have divination and have reached tutelary or higher, turn here. If you have hunt mastery and have reached principalian rating of or higher of here, or if you have neither of these and neither of these levels, let's go with the divination. Again, a crackling bolt of blue-white light lances from the hilltop and strikes with lethal accuracy. Screams of terror rend the air as the unslain soldiers fall apart in a desperate, panic-stricken flight to escape the fate that has befallen their slain comrades. Your Kai senses draw your eyes away from this carnage to focus on a figure clad in silver mail. With a gold-spiked helmet, he is crouching on the highest point of the dilapidated temple wall, and you sense that it is his magical power that is the source of these deadly blasts. Quickly you inform the prince of what you have sensed and seen at the temple. "By the gods, what manner of black sorcery is this?" gasps Prince Gregor, horrified by the cruel slaughter, but his horror is soon overcome by the realization that he must act swiftly to counter this threat or the battle could be lost. The Lencian knights are being held up at the bridge, and every minute that passes costs them dearly. He calls for his destrator, a magnificent white charger clad in ornate plate armor, and climbs to the saddle. "To battle!" he shouts, and ignoring the warning of his heralds, spurs his warhorse down the hill. The knights of the palace guard give a rousing cheer as he takes his place at the head of their column and leads them towards the ruined temple. Sure, I'll help. As the palace guards advance majestically, their serried? Serried? This is not a word I know. Oh, serried, like a series. Okay, so it's the adjectival form of series. Their serried ranks of steel slowly change formation in preparation for the prince's order to charge. Heavy lances rise like the spines of a steel porcupine, and their scarlet and yellow pennons unfurl to the wind. A wave of arrows comes flying towards you, sent by the Dracarim standing behind the fence of stakes. The range is long, and the shafts rattle harmlessly off the Urian armor and shields. The first rank of horsemen reach the ditch to find the earth soft and waterlogged. A ruined temple lies 300 yards ahead, and before it a line of Dracarim pikemen stand grimly silent on the slope of the hill. A war horn blares its signal, and suddenly all hell breaks loose. Arrows pour down on all sides, from the enemy archers to the right, and from archers that were previously unseen lurking in the woods to the left. Many shafts find their way through the sides of helmets and between plates of polished armor. Yet the prince commands his men onwards, and they force their horses across the ditch, braving the savage hail of death. You survive the arrows and steer your horse through the cloying mud, but are knocked from the saddle by a riderless steed maddened by the pain of its wounds. Pick a number from the random number table. If you have animal control and husbandry, and hunt mastery, add 3. We roll a 5, even without the bonus. You land with a splash and roll into the ditch to avoid being trampled by the horses. After clawing the muck from your eyes, you crawl along the channel. A short distance ahead of you, a knight is pinned beneath his dead horse, flailing his arms wildly. You can see that his head is trapped beneath the mud and he is slowly drowning. Yeah, we'll help him. Once you've managed to grab hold of his arms, you heave him out from beneath his dead mount, and prise open the visor of his helmet. He coughs and retches mud from his mouth and lies back against the bank of the ditch. "I owe you my life. Another minute and I'd been done for." You turn to leave, but he grabs you and presses a medal into your hand. "I won this at the Battle of Lumi. I want you to have it with my eternal thanks." So we steal his medal? It's a special item, so we can hold it. Another cloud of arrows fall from the sky. You dive to the bottom of the ditch to avoid getting hit. When you feel it is safe, you raise your head. You discover that the knight is no longer with you. He's chasing after the prince and his fellow knights as they gallop up the hill. Sure. Prince Gregor's voice rings out above the din of battle as he orders the palace guard to charge the pikemen. The ground shakes beneath the pounding of the horses' hooves as they gather speed, their pennons streaming from their levelled lances. The Dracarim huddle shoulder to shoulder, and nervously dig the butts of their pikes into the hillside to steady their shaking hands. The knights reach the hill. They thunder up the slope. A blaze of lightning hurtles from the top of the temple, but it is mistimed. It crackles harmlessly over their heads and explodes far behind them, hurling nothing but scorched earth into the sky. The prince screams his battle cry, and the knights slam into the Dracarim with a deafening roar. Men and metal howl in agony as the heavy horses break like a wave against the wall of pikes. You see a rider lifted out of his saddle on the point of a pike, and a ramp of black metal suddenly appears where a score of Dracarim have been trampled into the ground. The prince and a dozen of his bravest knights break through and gallop on towards the temple, but the Dracarim quickly close ranks and seal the gap. The remaining palace guards are forced to halt and engage the pikemen in fierce hand-to-hand combat. You reach the hill and leap over the steel-clad bodies that litter the slope. As you near the melee, you see two Dracarim rushing towards you, axes raised to hack you down. "For Summerland," you cry. Fight. Insta-kill whilst we receive 0 damage. The palace guards succeed in closing their ranks and fending off the frenzied attacks of the desperate Dracarim. Their gallantry and battle skill is a stirring sight as they fight their way determinedly towards the crest of the hill. Faced by such noble warriors, the Dracarim begin to falter and fall back in disarray towards the town. As you near the top of the hill, you catch sight of Prince Gregor. He is locked in mortal combat, doot 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 doot, with a silver-clad warrior inside the ruins of the temple. Strewn around them are the dead bodies of the palace guardsmen who, with the prince, broke through the pikemen during their charge up the hill. The prince is trying to prevent the warrior from retrieving a rod of iron that lies on the ground between them. The rod crackles with blue-white fire and shimmers with it along its length. We have the summer sword. You unsheath the sun sword, and flames course along the blade, filling the ruins with its vivid golden light. The prince turns to shout a warning, but his adversary strikes him a cruel blow that lays open his thigh and hurls him to the ground. Although his helm hides his face, its nose bar and chin piece expose little but malicious glint in his eyes. You are sure that this is no ordinary Dracarim warrior. The smell of evil hangs heavy around him, like the stench of a rotting corpse. He snarls a vile curse and flings his sword at your head. You fend off the spinning blade with ease, but the attack served its purpose. The warrior snatches up the shimmering rod and it hums with a force that reveals its ancestry. It is a stave of power forged in the furnaces of Helgadad. With a mighty yell, he thrusts the stave at your chest, and a blast of white flame scorches your arm as you parry the attack on the hilt of the summer sword. Half blinded by this flash, you stagger back and muster your strength for a desperate fight to the death. 40 combat skill? 40? That's a little bit much. We are going to full heal and use our performance enhancing drugs. Wait, I'm not allowed to use it? Why not? I want to use it. Maybe you use it once combat has begun? Yeah, here we go. Good. Less good. Good. Less good. 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 Very good. Not so good. You have barely survived the encounter with 8 hit points. You are also gravely injured. You should seek to heal yourself as soon as possible. I feel that the performance-enhancing drugs were the correct choice. If you win combat, turn here. At the moment of his death, a cone of black fire erupts from the stave and engulfs the Ziran's body. The guttering ebony flames howl like a pack of demons as they form into a small cyclone and ascend to the sky. Swiftly you take hold of the injured prince, heave him across your shoulder, and carry him away from the black tornado that is sucking chunks of temple debris into its spinning core. Once a safe distance from the temple, you lower the prince gently to the ground and watch the cyclone ebb and fade. Using your innate Kai skills of healing, you tend to the prince's wounded leg, and soon he stirs to consciousness. The Palace Guard have captured the hill, and their banner flutters overhead proudly, proclaiming their victory and inspiring the Lencians who are fighting at the bridge. The prince orders that a signal be sent to his reserves, instructing them to advance without delay, for the enemy is rallying to counterattack. Tensely, you watch a mass of leather-clad Hammerlanders, supported by a regiment of grim-faced Brigandi, advance up the hill. The Palace Guard link their shields and prepare to welcome the enemy with sharp steel. Onwards they come, banners held high, war horns filling the air with a noisy clangor. Clangor? Continuous loud banging or ringing. They surge forward with a yell. The front rank slams into the shield wall. Sword blades fly, striking sparks and drawing blood. Axes and maces fall with crushing blows. A knight falls dead at your side, and his slayer hurls himself through the gap. He scrambles to his feet and attacks you with his reddened blade. I have 9 hit points left at the moment. So, we're maybe going to drink a couple of these potions that we have. Yes. 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 Goodbye. So many potions that we've been hoarding for several books. Okay. He didn't actually manage to hurt us at all. Good. Phew. Owing to battle frenzy, immune to mind blast. 4 men die before the shield wall knits together and the lost ground is regained. The Hammerlanders reel back and the Brigadini surge forward, but they too cannot force through the palace guard. A trumpet sounds in the distance and the prince's men cheer as they see their reserves streaming up the hill to support them. 200 Urian pikemen press forwards behind their bristling steel and take the enemy in the flank. The attack is devastating. The enemy is split asunder and swept from the slope. The pikemen halt, and through their ranks a wave of archers move forward to fire at the backs of the retreating foe. Retreat turns to rout as the Hammerlanders and Brigandini flee the field in chaos. On to Setzer, shouts Prince Gregor. The battle cry is taken up by his valiant soldiers as he leads them across the corpse-strewn field towards the town. Heavy fighting is raging along the main street. The Lencian knights have taken the bridge, and King Sarnak's spearmen have breached the wall that surrounds the apple orchard. However, the Drakrim are determined to stand their ground, and they fight back viciously like starving wolves. You run with a group of longbowmen towards the center of Setzer and find yourself approaching a barn-like building which overlooks the bridge. Standing at the window on the upper floors is a Drakrim sniper with an arrow notched and ready to fire. Patiently, he watches you weaving through the smoky ruins until you present a clear target. He releases his straining bowstring and sends an arrow whistling towards your heart. If you have Hunt Mastery, add 3 to your random number table roll. So we can't ultra fail, but we can modestly fail, presumably. Instinct saves you from a sudden death. You twist aside and avoid the You twist aside to avoid the speeding shaft, but it grazes your shoulder. Lose 2 health. But your enemy is now determined that you should die, and hastily he reloads his bow. Yeah, I'll bow you back. You want to engage in a shooting war? With the legendary grace and speed of a Kai Master in battle, you draw an arrow and send it whistling towards the sniper's head. He utters a gurgling scream as he topples from the first floor window. Your arrow stuck in his throat. Search his body. He has money. I could use money. I could also use an arrow to replace the one I used to shot you. A spare quiver doesn't hurt. And I don't particularly care about a blanket. You reach a square near the center of town, where a unit of enemy reserves are gathered, awaiting the order to join the battle. They are Krawn, hideous-looking creatures from the Mogador and Akamazim forests. They are approached by a swarthy giant of a man with a short black beard and shiny bald head, who brandishes a massive war axe fashioned from a fiery red metal. The axe must weigh more than its wielder, but he waves it above his head as if it were no heavier than a stick of wood. Judging from his features and from what you've heard during your travels through Eru, this warrior is Baron Shinzar, the enemy commander. Shoot him! The Baron is shouting at the Khorne to form a line and get ready to advance. The only vulnerable part of his body that you can see as he strides back and forth is his unarmored head. Coolly, you draw an arrow to your lips and aim at the nape of his neck. Ugh. Pick a number from the random number table. Add to it any bonuses you may have. 4 plus 5 from Mastery plus 3 from Silver Bow. Your arrow strikes the Baron, but he is saved from a fatal wound by the lip of the steel burver that protects his neck and back. The arrow ricochets, gouging a deep furrow across the base of his skull and making him fall heavily to his knees. Bellowing like an angry bull, he glares in your direction as he staggers painfully to his feet. Beg pardon. As he staggers painfully to his feet. Meet your doom, urine scum, he sneers as he strides across the square, his fearsome axe raised to strike. One sec. You lift the summer sword and level it at his head. The blade shimmers gold as the sunlight catches upon its tip and charges it with power. A flicker of doubt passes across the Baron's eyes, but he shrugs aside his fear and continues his advance. With a roar like a howling gale, the blade of his axe is transformed into a massive scarlet flame that reeks of sulphurous decay. Oh, come on! Combat skill 40 and endurance 50? You may evade combat after 3 rounds. That assumes I live through 3 rounds. Run. What? Oh, run. You may evade combat after 3 rounds. Turn to 229. As you dive to avoid it, the blade whistles past your shoulder, slicing open your tunic, but sparing your flesh the kiss of its razor-sharp edge. Before you rise to your feet, the Baron steps forward to deliver the coup de grace. Victory belongs to me, he howls. But suddenly, he hears a sound that makes him recoil in horror. A trumpet. Yeah, I'm really low on health. I'm on 7 health. And this is after we've used all our potions, 2 fights in a row. A trumpet announces the arrival of Prince Gregor's men. Like, I have no more healing items. As they swarm around the west side of the square, Baron Shinzar screams in anger and lifts his axe high, daring them to step forward and feel its lethal caress. His offer is met by a dozen arrows, loosed by Uran archers From the houses bordering the squares, the shafts are drawn to the blade of the sorceress axe, where they disintegrate in a sizzling splash of glowing splinters. The summer sword seems to be making encounters harder. With an evil laugh, the Baron mounts his charger and gallops through the soldiers, cutting down those brave enough to stand in his way. But as he leaves the town, he finds his escape blocked by a new and formidable enemy. King Sarnak and the host of mounted knights block the road that leads to Blackshroud. They sit astride their war horses, their armor dented and stained with the blood of the Baron's cavalry, all of whom they have slain in battle or put to flight. The Baron thunders towards them at breakneck speed, but the king and his knights remain grimly immobile, like a wall of tarnished steel. Slowly they lower their lances as the Baron speeds nearer and nearer. With a last defiant cry of anger, the Baron and his horse smash headlong into the line. There is a sickening screech of buckling metal and rearing horses, and the Baron reappears, hoisted up into the air, impaled upon the tip of King Sarnak's lance. A triumphant cheer fills the air as the soldiers of Prince Gregor and King Sarnak flood into the square. Setsna has been recaptured and the enemy has been smashed beyond recovery. Everywhere you look, there are joyous faces, for the death of Baron Shinzar has sealed a victory that will liberate all of Eru from the cruel yoke of Drakarim occupation. As you watch the defeated remnants of the enemy escape across the ruins of the Seznawal and scurry like rats for the safety of Blackshroud, Prince Gregor joins you in celebration of victory. We have triumphed. Our land is free and the way is open for you to reach Tolgar and fulfill your quest. An hour before dawn, you leave Setsa and ride across the open grassland that slopes gently towards the River Brol. A full moon and the gathering light of the day may help you identify the landmarks that Prince Gregor told you to look for, to help guide you to a fjord close to the site of an abandoned copper mine. His directions are accurate, and by mid-morning you find yourself on a ridge that overlooks the ford and its cluster of derelict mining huts. I do have Hunt Mastery. How do I tell what rank is what rank? So, Mentora, then Principalian, then Tutary, then Primate. Principelli, Tutary, Primate. Okay, so yes, this one is the best, and that's the one we have. Using your powers of telescopic vision, you focus on the ruined log huts and scan them for signs of life. A dull... yes, the meaning of the word Ford other than the car. A dull glint of sunlight on tarnished steel and a glimpse of a scarlet-clad figure moving behind an open doorway warn you that the settlement is occupied. You cast your eyes along the river for an alternative place to cross. Yes, Primape. The evolution of Mankey. But it is only here that the deep, fast-flowing waters of the River Brol are shallow enough to cross on horseback. Let's risk an ambush. You spur your horse down the slope and gallop along an overgrown track that leads to the fjord. The log huts are shrouded in silence as you draw level with them. A gruff shout shatters this illusion of peacefulness, and a hail of arrows cuts through the air. One of them buries itself in your horse's neck. He shrieks in pain, crashes to his knees, hurling you into the river. You gulp a mouthful of icy water and struggle to your feet, coughing and cursing, just in time to see your ambushes pour out of the nearest hut. I do have a bow. I have at least 2 arrows and wish to shoot them all. With devastating speed and accuracy, you draw your arrows and fire them into the hearts of 2 enemy archers. Both men stagger and crumple to the ground, but your bowmanship does little to deter their comrades. With a fearsome yell, the 3 remaining brandish their swords and axes and come thundering towards you. I mean, at least my combat skill's a lot higher than theirs, but my health... I really, really wish I had another healing item. Go. Yes. Now we have literally 0. Oof. No damage. And now we're at half health. Wiping the sweat from your brow, you sheathe your weapons and search the bodies of your ambushers. All of them are clad in black helmets and scarlet. Oh. Scarlet chainmail halberds. Each has an assortment of weapons and equipment strapped to his muscular body. You recognize the distinctive armor that identifies them as Zaganozod, a motley unit of Dracarim cavalry which patrols the Black Shroud Trail. This company must have fled here on foot after the Dracarim defeated Setzer. You find no sign of their horses. You search their bodies and find these things: sword, quivers, daggers, arrows, bows, axes, maces, broadswords, loons, meals. Take whatever you want. Arrow. I will get rid of the empty quiver for the full quiver. Oh, no, it's not full. Okay, so just arrow, 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 fill up all the quiver. Take the money. Take the meal, 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 meal. Normally this is full of healing items, but this book has yoinked all our healing items. The ground rises steeply, and it is dusk before your climb ends at the crest of a ridge overlooking the grassland of northern Eru. In less than an hour, it will be dark. You decide to camp here on the ridge and continue at first light. Eat a meal or lose 3 health. They have hunting. You are settled down on a mattress of leaf mold when the howl of a timber wolf prompts you to abandon your soft bed and spend the night in the bough of a tree. Your journey northwards. What do meals do? You have to eat when you're told to eat. Else you lose health, like 3 or 4. Except if you have the hunting skill and you're somewhere that allows you to hunt. You usually can't hunt inside cities, so if you're inside a city, you're not allowed to. And if you're somewhere, like when we were in the Antarctic, when we were in the Arctic Circle 1, we weren't allowed to hunt there. It was too rugged. And there's also been a desert that we haven't been allowed to hunt in. But anything that's like grassland or forest, you can pretty much hunt in. We also couldn't hunt in part of one of the swamps, if I remember correctly. But it's still, I think, a really quite useful skill. Not needing to have your inventory full of meals means that you can have it full of healing potions for days like this, when you need to spam out healing potions. On your journey northwards through the Mogador Forest, which is long and a tiring trek, fraught with danger, roving bands of Krawn and packs of savage timber wolves demand that you remain vigilant at all times. And as you venture deeper into their vast domain, you feel your sense of time slipping away. Your only consolation on this long and lonely trek is that the wild game is plentiful, and you experience no shortage of food. Just to speak of food, on the morning of your 9th day in the forest, you notice that the grey pines are beginning to thin out and the ground is becoming dusty and sparsely vegetated. Soon you come upon a road constructed of broken stones which leaves the forest and disappears into a barren landscape of yellow sulphurous soil. The meals can last infinitely. There was some bananas from like book 3 or something, Salar, that we were carrying for about 5 more books, which was like 3 in-game years. Soon you come up... the game doesn't have that level of complexity in its, like, meals decay sort of thing. Soon you come upon a road of broken stones, which leaves the forest and disappears into the barren landscape of yellow sulphurous soil. You check your map and it confirms your suspicions. You've reached the foothills of the Nadulritzaga mountains, and are now less than 20 miles from the forest of Torgar. Oh yes, Salah, I'm sure they're still good for making banana cake. After a week of trekking across difficult terrain, the firm surface of the hill tracks feels as smooth as a mirror beneath your aching feet. By noon, you have put 10 miles behind you and have reached a bridge which crosses a sickly yellow stream flowing down from the surrounding hills. Eat a meal or you will lose health. Well, we have hunting. You are about to continue your journey across the bridge when you hear the rumble of hoofbeats and a group of horsemen shrouded in dust riding towards you. If you have hunt mastery and have reached the highest rank, go here. Using your ability to intensify your vision, you focus on the advancing horsemen. You see that they are all wearing surcoats of scarlet and grey, embroidered with a crest bearing an open hand. The only horsemen who wear this livery are the cavalry of Telestria. Sure, we'll wave them down then. They bring their horses to a halt and regard you with suspicion. Their officer draws his sword and demands to know your nationality and the name of your regiment. You reply in his native tongue that you are an Illyrian pathfinder, and a smile spreads slowly across his rugged face. He tells you that he and his men are scouts who have been sent to make sure the hills are free of enemy troops. Your Kai-6 sense confirms that he is speaking the truth, and when he offers to take you to meet his commander, you accept his invitation gratefully. You share the officer's... That is a ridiculous shape. You share the officer's horse as he leads his company back along a route they have already ridden. Steadily, the road winds upwards through the hills towards a ridge of yellow rock, and as you reach the crest of the ridge, you catch your first awe-inspiring glimpse of Torgar. The walls of this grim city fortress stand upon the brink of a ravine cut deep by centuries of rushing water. A natural causeway of stone spans this dark chasm and provides the only means of approaching Torgar from the south. Its position and defences seem impregnable. They cannot be impregnated. It commands the only road onto the barren land of Gartan, and any who dare travel the road must pass over the causeway and through the great iron gate, which doesn't actually look to be true. It looks like if you crossed here you could go around, so pretend this has been built slightly more to directly abut the edge here. The picture disagrees with the word description. I'm going to trust the word description more. In the past, there were few who would willingly venture to Torgar, but now the causeway and its approach swarms with such men. They are the soldiers of Telestria and Palmrian. They have come with their engines of war to lay siege to this grim Dracarim fortress. The scout officers spur his horse away from the ridge, and you are carried towards a cluster of tents that stands on high ground overlooking the siege. As you arrive, a group of knights sets forward to take the horse's reins. You dismount with the officers and follow. If you ever visited the lands of Telestria, well, we have. Inside the tent is a group of senior officers, poring over their battle maps and planning their troop dispositions for an assault across the causeway. Their leader has his back to you. When he turns, he sees who has entered his tent. He recognizes you at once. And you him. He is Adamus, Lord Constable of Garthan. By the gods, he explains. I thought the Danag had claimed you, Lone Wolf. How good it is to see you alive. He dismisses his captains and bids you tell him all that has happened since you last met. So you wish to break into Torgar, he says thoughtfully. How strange that our goals should be so similar. Come, follow me. Perhaps cooperation could hasten our success. A short distance from Lord Adam's tent stands a wooden watchtower, constructed by his army engineers, which offers an unobstructed view of the causeway and the great gate of Torgar. As you reach the top of its rickety ladder and step onto the platform besides the Lord Constable, he recounts the events that have led to the siege of the city fortress. Following his victory over the Ogians and the destruction of Zanar, Adamas led the allied armies of Bor, Telestria, and Palmrian along the Black Shroud Trail in pursuit of the shattered enemy. When they reached the Agna Kor Kuzim, the Road of Slaves, the army of Bor was detached and sent to assail Black Shroud from the east, while the bulk of allied forces marched north towards Torgar. When Telestria was overrun by the early days of the war, thousands of her people were taken as slaves and imprisoned in this fortress. Lord Adamas has sworn that one day he will free them, and is determined to fulfill his pledge. During the march north, a great battle was fought near the wastelands of Zutezna against two Giak armies led by Dark Lord Kragenskull and Dark Lord Schlanzor. Both were soundly defeated by the allies and sent back to Cragmantle to lick their wounds. Although victorious at Zutezna, the allies had suffered heavy losses, and Adamas feared they would be too weak to storm Torgard. He was too far from his homeland for reinforcements to reach him swiftly, and there was a growing threat that the Dark Lords would muster their troops in Tanoz and Mosgor to attack again. Faced with this grave dilemma, he decided to risk an assault on Torgar. "We have the means to breach their iron gate," he says, staring purposefully at the great door of Torgar. "The Elder Mages have given us a device that will reduce it to a twisted scrap. Then we march through that portal and free our people. We will have all the reinforcements we need." The hoarse cries of soldiers and the blare of war trumpets announce preparations for an assault. Across the causeway, armored infantry gather in a spearhead formation and wait for the order to advance forwards towards a wall of logs and earth, which has been thrown up to protect the vanguard troop dug in on the causeway itself. The warriors scuttle about behind their ramparts, holding arced wooden shields over their bent backs to protect them against the arrows raining down from the battlements. An iron gate stands less than 50 yards from their position. And this approach is heaped with the bodies of those who have fallen during the previous assaults. You accompany Lord Adamas as he makes his way through the massed ranks of infantry and enter a trench which zigzags towards the causeway. He hops at a log-lined hollow dug out of the trench wall and speaks with a captain who is lying there nursing a broken arm. The wounded officer hands him a leather satchel, and Adamas continues along the trench until he reaches the center of the causeway. There you both take cover with the vanguard and peer through a slit in the log wall at the formidable entrance to Torgar. "It is an impressive-looking door," says Adamas, studying the wall of black iron, pitted and streaked with age. "But every door has a key, and we have the key to this one." He flips open the leather satchel and removes what appears to be a mass of triangular crystals, fused into one solid lump. "This is the device that the Elder Mages prepared for us. It is to be placed at the foot of the door and is activated by pressing this shard," he says, pointing to a sliver of crystal protruding from the side. "It explodes 10 seconds after the shard is pressed." He takes a coin from his pocket and flicks it in the air. "One of us must place the device. We're the only two left who stand a chance of surviving. If you have divination and wish to use it..." You focus your Kai skill on Adamas' hand, but cannot tell which side of the coin is showing. All you can detect is a strong magical aura, indicating that the coin is magically shielded. You have no option but to guess which side is showing. Go for the bigger number, heads. When he opens his fist, you see that the coins show tails. "Fate has chosen you for this heroic task, Kai Lord," he says, and hands you a leather satchel containing the crystal explosive. "My men will cover you with their crossbows. Place the device so the shard faces the door, and remember, you only have 10 seconds. You shoulder the satchel, and as Adamas gives the order to his men to fire, you scramble over the rampart, sprint towards the great iron door. Pick a number from the random number table, add 2 if you have Hunt Mastery. If you've completed Solaris, add 2 more. So we can't critical fail, and we ultra succeed even without the bonus. The yells of the Dracarim echo along the battlement as they watch you sprint towards the city. Then a rain of boulders slams down with terrific force, spraying you with splinters of stone as they disintegrate on impact. Your senses keep you safe as instinctively you dodge the falling rocks and skid to a halt in front of the door. You plant and prime the crystal explosive and run back, counting the seconds with every step. You clear the rampart on the count of 7 and flatten yourself behind its protective wall. The crystal explodes with a blinding flash, releasing a bolt of sun-like energy that tears a massive hole in the 1-foot-thick iron plate and transforms what little remains into red-hot slag. The shuddering concussion jars the entire causeway, and fragments of glowing metal fall all around you. Triumphant cheers rise above the thunderous boom that is rumbling through the ravine as the spear point of Adamas's army surges through the causeway and towards the ruined gate. You take your place beside Lord Adamas and charge through the smouldering gap, leaping over the charred and broken remains of the Dracarim who were caught in the blast. The allied soldiers follow your lead and sweep into the startled city, through the gate now guarded only by the slain. Despite their shock, the defenders begin to rally as they receive fresh reinforcements from other parts of the city, and soon a vicious battle rages in the cramped and gloomy streets. You lead a group of Palmrian men-at-arms across a courtyard and into the dingy street, where you find yourself confronted by a regiment of Dracarin garrison troops. They've gathered to make a wall of shields behind a pair of small figures, black-robed and cowled, holding a yellow globe. We do have divination. The robed figures possess magical abilities. The glass globes they are holding contain a volatile mixture of phosphorus and air. If they were to break, the contents would burst into flames. I have a bow. Let's try and trigger their grenades in their hands. The two diminutive magicians see you level your bow and realize that they are in danger. As you take aim, they get ready to hurl their spheres at your party. Pick a number from the random number table. We add mastery, we add silver bow, so he couldn't possibly fail. Your arrow screams towards the magician and shatters the sphere clasped in its claw-like hand. There is a brilliant flash as it explodes, shattering fragments that hiss like a host of fiery snakes among the Dracarim. The second magician drops his own sphere, setting off another explosion. The Dracarim scream in pain and terror as the fragments burn everything they touch. Surviving Dracarim scatter to the surrounding alleys, and you're able to advance towards the center of Torgar unopposed. The Palmrians meet up with their regiment, and you continue along the dingy thoroughfare. It leads to an open square where a conical tower of iron points accusingly at the sky. Here, the flagstone vibrates to a continuous throbbing that beats like a gigantic pulse somewhere deep in the bowels of the city. The battle has drawn most of the Dracarim away from this square, and you have no difficulty in reaching the tower and entering it via an open archway. A corridor of steel lies beyond, empty save for the constant din that assails your ears. Countless passages lead off from the main corridor, all sloping downwards, and many occupied by Dracarim warriors. The passageways are poorly lit, and it is easy to avoid your enemies until you reach a vast stairway bathed in bright orange. Bathed in bright orange glow that radiates from a level below. Pick a number from the random number table. Add 3 if you've completed the Circle of Solaris. We have done poorly. When you are halfway up the staircase, or down I should say, at least we're back at full health, a shadow looms into view. Healing has been slowly regenerating our health. Seconds later, a Dracarim officer appears and begins to ascend. He is the most repugnant human being you have ever seen. His enormous, bloated body bulges with overdeveloped muscles to the point of deformity. And his face is puffy and fat, shiny with sweat and pitted with disease. A battle wound on his right cheek has scarred badly, drawing that side of his face into an ugly sneer. He sees you and unsheathes a massive saw-edged scimitar that looks more like a cleaver as he strikes up the stairs and attacks. Scimitars are pointy at the end, aren't they? Not broad-bladed. He has really quite good skill. We only modestly outskill him. But he just doesn't roll particularly lucky. Our skill lead of like 2 is enough. His body rolls down the stairs and comes to rest in an undignified heap near the bottom. You are loath to touch him, but he may possess some useful items. Gritting your teeth, you pull him onto his back, empty his pockets, and discover the following. A black key and kicker, which is another money. Kicker is a form of currency used in the Darklands. Each coin is worth 1/10 of a gold crown, and it takes up the same space in your belt pouch. You may take whatever you want. Mark your action chart accordingly. Key. Oh, I have to get rid of something for the key. I will dump 1 quiver for the key. Take money. Why can't I take it? I'm already too rich. Oh, it adds up my crowns, loons, and kika when it's thinking about how rich I am. To continue your exploration, turn to 285. Beyond the staircase lies a circular parapet which overlooks a huge cavernous crater. It is filled with thousands of human slaves, toiling with pick and shovel deep in the sulphurous heart of Torgar. Their bodies are filthy and covered with sweat despite a freezing wind, which howls in the depths like a hungry wolf. Dracarim overseers urge them to greater effort, and the crack of their whips is answered by the slaves' anguished cries of pain. Angered by what you have seen, you leave the parapet and enter a dimly lit passage that descends to a door of black steel. A twist of the handle reveals it's locked. We have a black key. The lock clicks and the door opens on a passage lined with torches that splutter and crackle noisily. Halfway along is another door. A solid slab of iron, broken only by a small barred window. I have visited the Danag. Beyond you see a dank dungeon cell. A prisoner sits cross-legged on the stone floor, his head resting on his chest. How? I can't possibly rest my head on my chest. He must have a supernaturally flexible neck. The dark skin on his hands and arms is covered in tiny scars. He has plaited hair, which is matted with grime and dried blood. He raises his head and your pulse races as you recognize the face of Lord Pado, a warrior magician of Desi. A key to the cell door hangs on a hook nearby. You grab it, twist the lock, and kick the heavy slab of metal. It creaks open and Pado rushes forward to embrace you. Thank the gods you have found me, Lone Wolf, he says, his voice filled with emotion. The Dracarim said you were dead, that your body lay rotting in the Danag, but I never believed their lies. Pado is overjoyed to hear that the Torgar gate has fallen and that a battle is raging in the streets above. When you inform him of your mission, he replies with news that raises your hopes for success. I can help you, Lone Wolf, he says, his warrior pride restored by the thought of avenging his cruel imprisonment. I know where the Law Stones are being held, and I can take you to them. Stealthily, you follow Pado through the dungeons of Torgar, using the shadows to avoid being seen. Ragged columns of slaves stumble along the passages, dragging their tortured, half-starved bodies to and from the work pits. They are beaten, cursed, and whipped relentlessly by their Dracarim guards, who seem to delight in their suffering. You emerge from a corridor into the shadows of a circular chamber, where a staircase ascends to a pair of huge triangular iron doors, guarded by a squad of crack Dracarim Death Knights. A tingling sensation electrifies your skin, and your senses detect the presence of the Law Stones somewhere behind the doors. Suddenly an alarm bell fills the chamber with a deafening clangor. It's the second time we see that word that I hadn't seen before. The Death Knights begin to descend the stairs, and your stomach churns with fear that you have been detected. Use divination. The alarm bell signifies the entrance to the tower is under attack. Adamus and his men have reached the center of the city and are now fighting their way down into the dungeons in an attempt to free the slaves. The Death Knights hurry to their battle stations and are unaware of your presence in this chamber. They trample past your hiding place, hurry out of the chamber. Pato breathes a sigh of relief as the sound of their heavy footfalls is quickly lost in the noise of the alarm bell. Only when you are sure you're alone do you leave your hiding place and approach the triangular doors. You pull a metal bar set into the wall, and the huge lead-lined doors rumble open to reveal an incredible sight. Before you stands a domed chamber, its ceiling crisscrossed with gantries of rusted iron. At its center is a circular black pit, around which are gathered groups of ghoulish creatures clad in transparent robes and masks. Angled upwards from the floors are slender crystal rods that glow with green fire. They pour forth a constant stream of pencil-thin light, which focuses at a point directly above the center of the pit. Your eyes are drawn to this point, for there you can see the three remaining lore stones of Nixator, the objects of your quest, held suspended in a bowl of flickering green flame. The harsh clang of the alarm bell and the sudden sight of your silhouette, that's nice to say, the sudden sight of your silhouette in the doorway has startled the creatures. They slink away from the pit and escape through the archway, leaving you and Pado alone in the chamber. Cautiously, you approach the edge of the pit and look down into its midnight depths. No light penetrates the blackness, and no sounds can be heard from this seemingly bottomless abyss. Above you, the lore stones hang suspended in a ball of green flame beyond reach from the ground, within a hand's breadth of the gantries which crisscross the pit. If you wish to climb the gantries and attempt to retrieve the lore stones, go here. Examine the crystal rods, go here. Search for a way to retrieve them from below, turn here. Let's look at the crystal rods. You sense that the crystal rods are generating a powerful charge of negative energy. The lore stones are being bombarded by this energy in the hope that it will destroy them. If you retrieve them safely, you must first shut off this power. By doing so, you would remove the way that they are being kept suspended in the air. You ponder the problem for several minutes before you hit upon a solution. You notice there is a spot where the gantry passes directly over the ball of green flame. If you could crawl to that spot, you'd be able to cup your hands below the lore stones. Lord Pedo could destroy the crystal rods, and the lore stones freed of the energy beams would drop into your hands. It is a bold plan, but you feel confident that it will succeed. The corroded iron gantry shakes violently as you inch your way nearer the flaming green ball. Once you are in position, you call to Pedo, and one by one he smashes the crystal rods. As each rod is broken, its beam disappears and the fireball grows weaker. The golden light of the lore stones begins to radiate through the evil green flames. When Pedo has destroyed half of the rods, one of them tips and falls into your waiting hands. Immediately, a wave of energy courses through your body, filling you with renewed strength and sharpening your thoughts and perceptions. You shout encouragement to your companion, and he raises his head to reply, but his words are drowned out by a harsh and terrible voice. "Vengeance is mine, lone wolf," booms a thunderous voice. Terror strikes deep in your heart when you turn and see the ghastly form of Dark Lord Gnag, filling the archway through which his minions escaped when first you entered this chamber. A ghastly, rasping laugh echoes from his fly-like head as he raises a black crystal and points it at the gantry. The vow I gave at Tahoe shall be fulfilled. I will destroy you and the lore stones. There is a deafening crack and a bolt of blue lightning streaks from the stone held in his pincer-like claws. It shears through the rusty metal and you're peppered with red-hot iron splinters. As the shockwave hits the weakened ball of fire, the two lore stones are sent tumbling into the black abyss. A second bolt from the black stone tears the gantry in two, and with a ghastly laugh, Dark Lord Gnag ringing in your ears, you plummet headlong into the icy cold pit. You've fallen into a portal of total darkness, a shadow gate that leads into the twilight world of Dazian. The wisdom and strength of the lore stones of Limoy is now part of your body and spirit, and the last remaining lore stones are within your reach. But your descent into Diazan heralds the beginning of a deadly, supernatural episode of your Magna Kai quest. Should you have the courage of a true Kai Master, The wonders and horrors of the Twilight Plane await you in Book 11, the penultimate Magnakai adventure, entitled The Prisoners of Time. Whew! So aside from those two really tough fights at the start of the book instead of the end, this book was pretty okay and tame for, like, fights and insta-killing us. But it was stacked up the front compared to most games that have a big fight at the end. This had those two fights at the start. Alright, cheers all. Thank you for joining. I hope you have had a lovely time and will join us for more next week.